Anusha, very, very happy to be here. It's been a while,
Yeah, it's
but
been a year.
excited. Yeah, it's wow.
Yeah,
Oh my God, time has
yeah,
flown big time.
exactly. Yeah, I'm really excited about this episode because I think this is one of the biggest conversations that marketers are having at the moment. And I know that after years of listening to the B2B Playbook podcast, I'm very interested and I want to ask you a few questions. And I have the questions framed in a way. We have three segments, and I want to go through each of the segments, ask you questions, and annoy you. So hang in there, bear with me. So the first segment I want to cover is demand generation fundamentals, starting off with what is demand generation?
I think it's something that a lot of people try and complicate. But for me, demand generation is, first of all, it's a go-to-market strategy. It builds an intense desire in your dream customer, and the goal is to try and get them to purchase from you. So I think really what good marketing should do is it should A, get someone to prioritize a problem, get them to realize that you solve it in the way that it should be solved, and then lead them to the logical conclusion that you're the perfect company to help them do it. And demand generation is effectively how do we actually go about doing that? And I think it's comprised of two parts. You've got demand creation and demand capture. Demand capture is where most organizations start out when they start a new business. It focuses on the 3 to 5% of the market who are ready to buy right now. Research shows that only roughly 5% of the market are ready to buy right now. The other 95% aren't. They're in research mode or they're just not problem aware yet. And so demand capture is really about trying to capture that existing demand as efficiently as possible. So who is looking to buy? How can we get in front of them? And how can we turn them into customers right now? That's where companies start. That's fantastic. That's where you should start. The issue is that if you only focus on people who are ready to buy right now, guess what? That's who your competitors are focusing on. It's like having a piece of pie, and as you grow and as your competitors grow, you're each trying to take a bigger and bigger slice of the same size piece of pie. It gets harder and harder to do the more that you scale. So then the conversation goes to, well, then demand generation is also comprised of demand creation, not just demand capture. And that looks at the other 95% of the market who are not in buy mode yet. They're people who are problem aware or even unaware of the solution that your product or service really helps with. Your job with demand creation is to really build a relationship with them, win their trust, to make them prioritize that problem and lead them to the logical conclusion that you're the best product or service available for fixing it. Just a little bit of research that backs up the need to do this. Research from Bain and Google shows that 81% of companies will not buy from you unless you're top of mind before they start looking for a solution. So if they haven't heard of you before, most won't buy from you, even if they discover you at the point where they're ready to buy. So what that means is the 5% of the market that's ready to buy from you right now, that full 5% isn't it really available to you. It's 20% of that 5% who will, which is about 1%. And that's why it can feel like really finding a needle in a haystack. So demand creation is all about building relationships with those future customers. Demand capture is capturing those who are in market ready to buy right now. And demand generation is how do we do that in a cost-effective manner?
Wow. Okay. So I want to know, how is it different from lead gen?
Yeah, look, I don't have an issue with lead gen unless it's done poorly. Lead generation typically focuses on, do we have something of value that we can wrap up in the form of an ebook and get people's contact details in exchange for it? The issue is when we focus on sheer quantity of leads rather than quality, which is not all lead gen marketers, but it's a lot of them out there, then that incentivizes us to just be out there capturing details, but we're not actually doing any marketing. Marketing is trying to lead people along through those stages of awareness to make them prioritize the problem you're solving and show them you're the best solution for doing it. If all we're doing is focusing on trying to capture people's contact information, we're not really doing that. So what happens is so many people's funds get dedicated to like capture more details. And the result is you have a bunch of what we call leads. They're either put into a nurture sequence, which, doesn't really end up converting many over a long period of time, or they're shoveled onto sales. Sales get annoyed because guess what? Like none of those leads are ready to buy. Most of them probably don't even pick up the phone or answer your email because they have no brand awareness, they have no trust, and it completely incentivizes the wrong behavior. And it's really built to feed a lot of like sales-led growth models, which are also, starting to have issues of their own in terms of scalability.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So I do want to talk about something that I've learned a lot from the B2B Playbook podcast, which is where you talk about content being the central role that plays a central role in demand gen. So what kind of role does it play and why is it so important?
Yeah, so I think like B2B marketing is fundamentally about really understanding your target customers as deeply as possible, mapping out who they are, what's important to them, what their buying journey really looks like. And then content is really just our way of being able to communicate that with them. So once we figure out what do we need to say to turn someone from a prospect into a customer, to take them on that journey of prioritizing a problem and then being led to the logical conclusion that you're the best person to do that for them, what pieces of content do we need to do to say that? And that's ultimately what we really need to create. So I think that it's really important for content to be mapped to a framework that we love called the 5 stages of awareness. It's a framework that really closely maps the buying journey. So we make sure that every single piece of content we create is mapped to one of those 5 stages of awareness, whether that's a LinkedIn post, an article, a podcast episode, a YouTube video. We know where it's at, that 5 stages of awareness. We know what purpose it's serving in terms of furthering that overall journey. I think that something that's important is to have different types of content at different stages as well. So earlier in the 5 stages of awareness, when people don't know you that well, if someone is like unaware or just kind of problem aware, they're not very likely to sit down and listen to a 40-minute podcast with you or to read a 1,500-word article. Like our goal for people who are unaware or problem aware is to shock them into that state of awareness that makes them start investigating the problem you solve. So an example that happened to me recently was I came across an article, which actually was I think it was a LinkedIn post, which linked to an article, which is all about how a company very similar to mine was subject to a data cybersecurity hack. It was a huge disaster for them and their clients. I saw that and I just went, oh, damn, like that's really bad. I need to go and investigate this. So that then made me go and start looking at, well, what are the problems associated with a cybersecurity breach and then how to remedy it. And then all the way through eventually to us purchasing cybersecurity insurance. So starting with like shorter forms of content, things that really get us to press on that emotion. So stories are a fantastic way to do that. Are really, really great formats and content types for those earlier stages of awareness. And then later, as you move towards further down the funnel, solution aware, product aware, most aware, that's probably where like the logical brain takes over a little more, like the rational side, and you start playing into deeper content that really deepens your relationships with people. So you might be talking about case studies, testimonials, product comparison reports, all that kind of stuff is really, really valuable as well. So yeah, look, the further down the stages of awareness you're going, you want to probably get deeper in your content. I think the key thing is as well that the content that you're creating is repurposed into a format that you know your customers really like. If you're dealing with customers who, for some reason, are not very likely to watch, extended videos on YouTube, then don't make that your pillar piece of content format. Like, don't do that. If you know they prefer to read like extended white paper reports because maybe citations and sources of information are really important, then prioritize that. And the other point I would probably add is make sure the channel that you distribute it on is a channel that your audience likes. We're only on LinkedIn because we know that we have a lot of marketers on LinkedIn. Otherwise, I wouldn't be there. So yeah, that's just a few things around around content and how we approach it.
Yeah, I totally believe in repurposing content. I think a lot of people do think that just because it worked for one company, that it's going to work for another, which is not at all true because the customer base might not be the same. When you talked about the first piece of content that's going to shock someone, in your experience, what has been the most popular one that has worked, especially for B2B?
Yeah, I think something that gets you to really see yourself in that other person's situation. So like a story, like the example I gave about the cybersecurity hack, that stuff is really, really powerful. Something that we use for ourselves really often is I talk about the fact that, I used to just be a marketer who was very activity based. I was just doing things that were asked of me. But guess what? Like one day, leads are going to slow down, business is going to dry up, and the first department to get the finger pointed at it is marketing to justify their existence. And it sucks. It's a terrible feeling. And making people realize that it's not okay to just keep doing activities and not measure what they're doing and not think about whether or not they're driving the business forward, like making them realize that that's not okay. And if they do that, they're leaving their fate in someone else's hands, is what leads them to go into that problem aware state where they go, well, what does this problem really mean? Why is it a problem? And then how can I start fixing it? And so we use like a lot of firsthand stories of back when we used to be that marketer and all the horrible feelings associated with it and all the risks that like it put us in, to really empathize with our future customers. And I think you can take that approach for any business, right? You're just going to understand who it is that you're talking to. You've got to understand like what position they're in and what happens to them if they don't prioritize this problem in the way that you think they should.
That makes a lot of sense. Going back to something that you were talking about where you said that some people are ready to buy your product and they are aware that they have a problem, but they still wouldn't buy it. Do you think that it's because of how many people don't vouch for a certain brand or a certain company? And how does customer advocacy play a role here?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like it's really because that company that's looking for a product or service right now doesn't trust you. And chances are that there's an incumbent already there that, people say nobody got fired for hiring IBM. If you go with the incumbent and it goes wrong, well, that's not going to look as bad in the performance review, right? Because like, how are you to know? Everyone else uses it. Our competitors use it. And it didn't work out. Oh, well, like it probably, wasn't my fault for hiring them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go out on a limb and you hire someone else, you better have a lot of trust that that person isn't going to let you down. And so there's a few ways to build that trust, right? Like we as a company can go out there and build relationships with people, get to trust us. Content is a great way of doing that. One-to-one interactions is a great way of doing that. Other ways is through like partnerships and referrals. So to take it to a pretty wild example, like a good friend of mine is, recently single, back on the dating scene, not having a huge amount of success on Hinge, which is a dating app. And like, I would, equate that to like cold outbound. But all of a sudden, like if he asks a friend, hey, do you know anyone who might be suitable to go on a date with me? And you have a referral, it's way easier to get both people to go to the date because you have that trust in that other person. It's the exact same thing with business.
Right.
Like it transfers that trust. And so that's why that's a great shortcut. And that's where like evangelists can come in, partnerships can come in, going through your existing customers to ask for introduction to similar customers. That's why all that stuff works.
Absolutely. Just have someone to vouch for you. That always works.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to go back to something that you were talking about, the frameworks, right? So the 5Bs framework that you have on the B2B Playbook podcast, I want to talk a little bit about that. Can you break that down and tell me how that is applied in demand gen?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, really, it's our framework for demand generation. And we think there's 5 key steps. The first 3 are the fundamentals. And the first one is what we call be ready. And that's all about what do you need to do to deeply understand your customer. So when we go and talk to them and put things in front of them, we have the best chance at building a relationship with them and getting them to want to buy from us eventually. And so what do we need to do that? Well, we've got a bunch of steps that you should go through to be ready. We think it really starts by niching down, running 80-20 analysis on your business to understand who are your best customers. Because as marketers, we are all limited by time, budget, and resources. We know that the B2B journey is complex. It might take 15, 20, 30 touches on a prospect to usher them through that buying journey. And every single one of those touches takes, again, time, budget, or resources. So if we cast our net too wide, we're not going to be able to get enough touches on enough people to usher them through that buying journey. So that's why we've got to start by really defining who is the best fit for our product, what do they look like, and understand as much as we can about them. So then we dedicate our time, resources, and budget in the most efficient way possible. So define who they are. Customer interviews is really, really key after that to understand them as deeply as possible. Finding out why they chose you over competitors, why they're such a great fit for your product, how it helps them in their jobs to be done is all really, really important stuff. Who the buying committee is. So when you're selling a product to them, they're not the only one involved in the decision-making process. Who else is involved and what's important to them? Documenting all of that information is incredibly important. And then in those interviews as well, finding out what their customer journey looked like. What made them go from being unaware to problem aware? At what point did they start to decide that, you know what, something has happened and now we really need to solve this problem? It's become really urgent. Figuring all that out helps you map the buying journey. It helps you figure out who your best customers are and what you really need to say to them to go and find more just like them and turn them into customers. So we're just reverse engineering that process and documenting that whole thing. And that's what we call Be Ready. It's the very first step. It's the step that so many people skip and instead go, oh, we'll just copy our competitors' messaging and run them as ads and see which one gets the highest click-through rate. That is a disaster. You will waste a ton of money doing that. So once we've done that work in Be Ready, the second stage is Be Helpful. So that's the second B in our 5 Bs framework. It's really about how do we now build relationships of trust with our audience. Well, we should have a really good idea based on the information we collected in stage 1 in Be Ready. We basically know what that buying journey looks like. Now we should map our content to that buying journey, map it to the 5 stages of awareness. It should be as helpful as possible. It should look to make your dream customers' lives better, even without working with you. It should still make their life better because that's a great way to build relationships. And really, it should guide them through that buying journey, again, leading them to that logical conclusion that you are the perfect business to help them. That's what we're really are trying to do and Be Helpful, and bonus points if you can do it in an interesting way as well. So something that's a little bit different to your competition. The third B in the 5 Bs framework is called Be Seen. And so again, stage 1, deeply understood our customers and what we need to say to them. Stage 2, we actually created the content that we need to put in front of them. Stage 3 is literally about how do we get that in front of their eyeballs? Because it's no good us creating all this stuff and putting it on our website or having it in brochures and no one ever sees it. I don't care what channel method you use for getting this in front of people. It just needs to get in front of them. And how you do that is going to depend on your own industry. So it's really about getting the information in front of them. You can do that, on social channels. You can do it through events. You can do it on a one-to-one basis through sales. You can do it through social selling. You can do it through newsletters. You can do it through your blog. It's all just about distribution. The other part in being seen is how do we identify accounts, potential customers that are more likely to be in market, that have engaged with our brand, but haven't actively said, yes, George, I want to buy from you. How do we engage them and put them into an account-based marketing sequence, which is basically an orchestrated event between marketing and sales to accelerate that relationship, win their trust, and try and get them across the line. So they're the key stages in the first 3 Bs. So be ready, be helpful, be seen. I'll just go a little bit faster through be better and be the best. They're a little less essential, but be better is all about how do you optimize your workflow now that you have those first three fundamentals in place. And that's where you go to things like A/B testing, advanced tracking, reporting, using CRMs and data, using partners and affiliates. All that stuff is really, really good to optimize the first three stages. And then what we cover in Be the Best is the advanced tactics that's normally reserved for some of the big players. And that's where we dive into tactics like using neuroscience and psychology to win over your dream customers, to give them the the biggest chance that they're going to say yes to you when you send that email or have that piece of correspondence. And we also look at things that are a little bit more advanced, like building education ecosystems. But I think most marketers don't do the first three Bs, be ready, be helpful, be seen. And that's the stuff that is going to make the huge difference in your business. The other stuff are the incremental 1, 2, 3% improvements. But the first three are the fundamental keys.
It's fantastic. So it's basically you recognizing their pain points through their journey and making sure that you have the answers. You tell them that you have the answers to their problems, and it's more personalized. And then you work on how effective it should be later on. And then the workflow is just optimized. Did I get that right? Did I understand that right? Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Understand them, create the content that they need to help them work through that buying journey. You be seen is just distributing it. You can do it on a one-to-one basis. Sales are great at that. You can do it on a one-to-few basis, which is things like, events, webinars, forums, groups, and a one-to-many basis, which is like your organic posts and you're reaching, and paid social, all that kind of stuff. You're reaching a lot of people all at once, and marketing is best equipped to handle those. But we're just putting that 5 stages of awareness content in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Love frameworks.
Yeah, it's a little more simple.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I like when things are streamlined and not chaotic. This really helps. One of the things that comes under this conversation is like social selling, which a lot of people are talking about. What is social selling and why is it so important?
Yeah, I think that social selling is really just people using social platforms like LinkedIn to do their marketing, and people are trying to equip their marketers and sales staff and leaders within the organization to do it as well. The way that I view it is really, again, like if you've done the hard work in defining who your audience is in step 1, you've created helpful content in step 2, then social selling is just another method of distribution. So it's really just getting that content in front of people on social platforms like LinkedIn. And again, you can do that on a one-to-one, one-to-few, and one-to-many basis. So if we're using LinkedIn as an example, again, your approach might be connect with your ICP on LinkedIn to bring them into your network. You don't want to sell to them straight away. Like, that's a terrible idea. Everyone's walls will go up. They'll remove you. It's not a good idea. So connect with your ICP, like provide value by posting, supporting, and engaging with relevant content. Excuse me. Look for opportunities to help and progress the conversation. So if you can see that someone from your ICP has viewed your profile, if they've engaged with your company, if they visited your website according to website visitor tracking tools like Clearbit, or if they've liked your post, that's an opportunity to then reach out. Again, not to push a meeting, but like to offer to help more. If you created content in line with those 5 stages of awareness, you should have a wealth of resources available to help them right now. Like, I will regularly look at who has viewed my profile, and I'll reach out to them and say, hey, I saw like you were checking out our demand gen resources. We have a huge backlog. Is there something like that you're looking for that can help you? Because let me know, because I can send you whatever we have that's really helpful. It's a great way to engage people, to be helpful. And then, you can start investigating what their problems are too, right? Because they might be like, oh yeah, I'm really struggling when it comes to demand generation on who to focus on. I go, great. Okay. Like, I have information on how to do that and send them those resources. And then I can check in and say, well, how did you go with that? And then you just progress the conversation from there. And so I think what people miss about social selling is, yes, it's great to go out and post on LinkedIn and for people to be aware of you and your brand. But the gold is like in that one-to-one interaction as well, not just in the comments, but in the DMs, and do that in a helpful, non-threatening way.
I like the non-threatening part because people are threatening. People just send you messages like they don't even care.
Oh, it's a churn and burn approach, right?
Right.
And I don't advocate for that. I don't think that's a good long-term sustainable tactic for a lot of people. And yeah, that's why we don't practice that either. Like, we're here to play the long game. We're here to build trust. We're here to show them that we're experts, and when they're ready, they'll come to us.
Right. Yeah. It's about positioning yourself in a way that it's like reaching out to a friend. If I have a problem, I know this is the right person for me to have this conversation with, and you just have to position yourself that way.
Exactly. That's exactly it. That's spot on. Yeah. And if I may, there's, a lot of marketers will say, look, we're not ultimately in control of people's buying journey. So the best that we can do is stay in front of them and hope that they choose us one day. To a degree, that's true. But also, like, as marketers, we have the ability to send them information framed in a way that benefits us. So when I talk about demand generation and I talk about the different ways to solve for demand generation, of course, I'm going to say that the best way to solve demand generation is by training up someone in-house, because the alternative of hiring another person, outsourcing it to an agency, are, I would say, less than desirable, expensive, and often have subpar results. Now, that's a narrative that suits, I believe it, I truly believe it, but that's a narrative that suits me because that's what our program, the B2B Incubator, does.
Right.
And so I think it's very important for people to think about the fact that, like, we've got to make people realize that, yes, there are other solutions out there, but we've got to get them to prioritize it and solve it in the way that we think it should be solved. And I think people miss that step.
Yeah, it's about having internal advocates, evangelists that can talk about your brand, not just in like a way because they have to talk about it, but because they want to talk about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I just want to move this conversation into something that everybody's talking about, AI. And I want to get your thought on that. How do you think AI is reshaping this whole marketing industry, and also specifically focusing on demand generation? Have you used AI, and what do you think about that?
We've been primarily using it to help our content repurposing process. So our content repurposing process takes us about 5 hours, which means in about 5 hours every week, we get a super in-depth article, a YouTube video, a podcast, our 12 LinkedIn posts, our 5 to 10 YouTube shorts, and a newsletter, which is pretty wild. I think it's pretty high quality. We never have any complaints about the quality. I don't know if you've been reading any of our in-depth articles, Anusha, but
Sundays. I know Sundays. Sundays means it's B2B Playbook Podcast. I know
that. That's right. But the articles look very high quality as well. And it's not about taking, an article writing task of 4 hours and reducing it to 10 minutes. It takes that 4 hours down to about 1 hour. So I think it's really, really powerful there. But the key is the initial insights that you're using AI to help with should be created by a real person. They should be done by subject matter experts. So for us, our pillar piece of content is Kevin and myself speaking from our own experience, our own stories, our own quotes, and then using the AI to act as like a journalist to pull those out and extract the key moments for us. That way, we still have something of unique value that's not just like an aggregate of the top 10 search results, which is how most people are using AI. So yeah, very, very powerful for content repurposing. I'm concerned that it's going to make marketers maybe a little lazy or put some extra pressure on them. I know, especially when it comes to things like doing customer research, there's a lot of people who are using AI to say, imagine you are the CFO of a, financial services company with 50 to
Hmm.
100 employees. Like, what are your main tasks and what are your main pain points and all that kind of stuff. And again, like there is no substitute for going and talking to that CFO, and
Absolutely.
the insights will be vastly different.
Yeah.
Um, is AI something that you've played around with much, Anusha?
I do it. I do for content repurposing for the Marketing Win podcast. Absolutely agree with everything that you're saying there because I used to spend a lot of time figuring out how to put things out there. It's definitely become a lot more easier now. But I agree with you on the market research part because I mean, personally, even talking to people through the podcast, the things that you see on LinkedIn, the posts that they make versus when you talk to them, what they're going through in life, how they look at things are completely different. So the human to human contact is definitely necessary, is what I believe in. And that's how you build relationships, especially in marketing where partnership and customer advocacy plays such a huge role.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And that is my concern is people are going to stop having those customer conversations. It gives us one more way as marketers to hide behind our dashboards. I used to be a marketer that hid behind my dashboard. I was scared of talking to people. But once you have that first conversation with a customer or a prospective customer, it's like, a light bulb finally going on in just a pitch black room, and you know where to go all of a sudden. So I encourage any marketers listening who haven't had the opportunity to do it, please just do it. You will suck at it, but it's okay. Everyone's very forgiving, and it'll provide so many insights that'll make your life so much easier.
Absolutely. Yeah. I do feel like I have listeners that are very young, just stepping into the field, or even small business owners. What kind of advice do you have for them, for someone that has no idea what demand generation is?
Yeah, I would say like demand generation is ultimately getting those fundamentals of marketing down that have really gone missing. So we haven't completely reinvented the wheel. Actually, when we started out, we didn't even call this a demand generation strategy. We just called it a sustainable B2B marketing strategy. Meaning like, what was a good holistic B2B marketing strategy? But guess what, Anusha? That's not a sexy term. No one cares about that. So with the demand generation movement coming out and there being a lot of interest in that and a lot of confusion about what that was, we said, well, you know
Mhm.
what? This is actually all the good elements of demand generation and more. So let's just reposition this to say this is demand generation. And so I would say for those listening, like be careful if you're Googling, demand generation, and what you find might just be like a whole bunch of tactics glued together. Great demand generation is great B2B marketing, which is really the fundamentals of principles of marketing, which have been lost, all tied together in a sequential order. And that order is really what we've spoken about today. And we've tried to do our best to piece it together in our 5Bs framework.
That's perfect. I love that. I did want to ask you one last question, which has got nothing to do with this, but I saw your LinkedIn post on how ABM is not equal to demand gen, but it is actually the same. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure thing. So where we see demand generation and account-based marketing playing along, like a lot of people think of them as competing tactics, but I think they're actually like
Hmm.
complementary strategies. So if we're looking at the 5 stages of awareness, you have people that are unaware, problem aware, and solution aware. Our content that we're creating that is speaking to those people is generally what we would call demand generation, and that's normally to a wider audience, still defined as your ICP, but you're
Okay.
doing it to a wider audience, normally in a one to few or one to many basis. Account based marketing is when they start getting to like that product aware, most aware stage. They're companies that have engaged with you at some point and you've identified them and gone, hey, there's actually like 30 companies in the past month that
Hmm.
have really expressed some intent, and it looks like they're a great fit for us and they could be good to buy from us, but they haven't taken that next step. How can we now work together with sales to target them specifically to try and get them to buy from us. Some people will do that by uploading that company list into LinkedIn ads and running a whole bunch of advertising to them. The way that we love to do it is to really map out, okay, of those key 20 accounts, how many do we have contact details for? Who are we missing? How do we deepen our relationship with them? It might be inviting them on the podcast. It might be asking them for their opinion for a piece of market research, just something to develop that relationship and get it deeper, which we can then leverage to then find out, is there an opportunity to do business together? And if not, why not? And if we're a bad fit, fantastic. Like, I find out why we're a bad fit, and then I can then use that information and plug it back into my demand generation activities and go, let's not target people with these qualities anymore because they're actually a bad fit for us. So you see how it all kind of just like funnels in together.
I loved that. I didn't even know that they were so similar. They had such relationship. Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome. No worries at all.
Yeah. Well, that's all I had for you, really. I just wanted to understand the basics of demand generation, but I think we really learned a lot. I definitely learned so much from you over the past couple of years and in this episode. And yeah, thank you so much, George. Did you have anything you want to say?
Oh, anything else? Look, not without probably just constantly repeating myself. I just think that we try and complicate things so much, and it is in so many people's interest to complicate things. But B2B marketing is fundamentally about building relationships. You're going to do that if you understand what people want, and if you give it to them, figure out where they are to give that information to them as well. Like, it's kind of that simple. And the only other thing I would add is, like, we have to move away as marketers from this like whole random acts of marketing thing where we try and run a campaign and then we measure to see, hey, did that work for those 2-4 weeks that we ran these ads or we ran these events? All this stuff takes time. You have to have sustained, constant activity, because without that, you're not going to be able to stay top of mind for people long enough to build their trust and be that person so when they come into market, they choose you to buy from you. So stop thinking so much in terms of short-term activities and campaigns. Start thinking, how can we do this on a really consistent and sustainable basis? And that's how I would encourage people to think about it.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Build relationship, guys.
That's it.
Love that. All right. Thank you so much, George. I loved this episode. Thank you.
It was a lot of fun. Sorry for crapping on for a while. I appreciate it, Anusha.
I loved it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. And guys, go listen to the B2B Playbook podcast. You don't want to miss out on that. Been listening to it for the last couple of years. I think I'm an OG fan. You would agree, wouldn't you, George?
You are 100% an OG fan. You were back then. Sorry, yeah, you were a listener back when we check our listeners to see how many there were, we'd probably be able to tell if Anusha had tuned in or not.
Yes. Cool. Thank you so much, George. I had fun. Thanks.
Yeah, me too. And thank you so much for being a great supporter of ours. Kevin and I really, really appreciate it, and the opportunity to come on and speak to your audience as well.